Okay, we are live. Welcome back to the Digital Creators Podcast. I'm in the stew with Alexandria Lee. Hey, Alex, how are you?
I'm good.
So, Alexandria Lee is a full-time artist. Alex uses writing with a black ink pen on a hot-pressed cotton paper to craft portraits of pop culture icons such as Bob Marley, Pharrell, Lady Gaga, Virgil Abloh, and Denzel Curry. She's worked with and collaborated with international brands such as Foot Locker, ESPN, the Golden State Warriors, Puma, and Manchester City. In this episode, we're going to talk about her creative background, process, being an artist in the age of social media, and more. So, Alex, and that was loud. Take us back to where it started for you as a creative. Like, were you a creative kid? Were you like drawing as a kid in school and stuff like that, or?
Yeah, so I think I've always been creative. So I've always liked like the more creative things like performing arts,
Yeah.
like musical theatre, acting, dancing, and and then like drawing. But I was also like very shy as a kid. So when I was younger, I really wanted to like become an actress. So my mum put me in acting school and everything.
Yeah.
And then I never like pursued that because I think I was too shy.
Mm-hmm.
So then the next thing was drawing. So then she put me into like drawing classes and painting classes. So yeah, when I was younger, I did a lot of art and
Yeah. Did you like study art at all?
So in high school, I took like art classes.
Which high school was this?
Santa Maria, so it's an all-girls school, which I loved. Like I spent a lot of time in art class. Like at lunchtimes, I would go to art class and like finish my paintings. So I loved it. I hated science. I hated math. So I think like my brain is mostly mostly geared towards the creative side. And then when I graduated high school, I was like, oh, okay, I'm good at art. What else am I good at?
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to apply for art school, like to study fine arts. But my parents are like very Asian. So they're like, oh, I don't think that's a good idea. Like, what are you going to do? They're like, why not try graphic design? So then I did a bit of graphic design. I did like a semester, and then there were people in my classes that also did architecture. So they did some units in graphic design. And I was like, oh, like this graphic design degree is a waste. Like, why don't I try something harder?
Yeah.
So I switched to architecture.
Wait, why did you think it was a waste?
Because I thought like, oh, you can just like design like graphic things, but like the architecture students, they can design buildings and they can also like do the graphic design stuff. So I was like, oh, why am I paying for this degree when I can do that? So then I transferred and I started studying architecture. But then after 2.5 years, it got so hard for me.
Oh, yeah?
So then, yep.
Because there's like a lot of maths involved in architecture.
Yeah,
as
so
well.
you have to be very technical. And I felt like a lot of people in my class, like you really have to put in like all your energy towards each project. And if you don't, you just don't stand out in the class. And I felt like we would have pin-ups. So I thought that I would like put in all my energy towards my project. And then once I saw it like pinned up, everyone else was like better. And I'm like, okay, maybe it's not for me. So after like 2.5 years, and the undergrad degree goes for 3 years, and then you have to do masters. So
You have to do masters, do you?
yeah,
Okay.
to become an architect, you have to do masters, and then after that you have to do like practical work, and then you have to sit like a actual exam to become fully registered architect. So it's a long journey. So I was only 2.5 years into my undergrad, And then I went to a design conference in Sydney because I was like, oh, I saw the design conference like pop up on my social media and I'm like, okay, it's just on the weekend. I have to go. I was still in uni at the time. And I went there and I like heard like from other designers who spoke, and like a lot of them just like carved their own way and didn't really graduate from uni. And I'm like, oh, I'm really struggling. Like maybe I should just like take a step back and figure out what I want to do and like just take a break from uni. So after going to that design conference, I was really like inspired. I was like, oh, there's actually work out there. Like you don't need to be qualified as an artist or a designer. So I dropped out. Well, I took a break, but I never went back. And then, but then I didn't think it through. So I just took a break. And then I'm like, okay, what am I doing now? So I would just like do paintings. I remember finding different objects.
What were your parents thinking at this point?
Oh,
Like it.
I don't know. They knew that I really didn't. I struggled with like the semester that I was in of architecture. So they're like, okay, let her take a break. That was only meant to be a break for like the semester and then go back the next year. So yeah, I was just like painting in my bedroom and filming it and then putting it onto YouTube. So I remember getting like a tin of black paint from Bunnings, and then I would buy like random objects. So So like I would go to Kmart and I would buy like a spider, like an electronic spider, and then I would like use it, dip it in the black paint, and then I would use it to like paint Billie Eilish's portrait.
Cool.
And then put like music like in the video, the process video.
An electronic
and then,
spider, can you like control where it walks?
So then you can control
it. It's
it.
like a remote control.
Yeah.
car,
So
but a
then
spider.
So then I would dip it in the paint and then it would like kind of crawl across the page and then it'll make the portrait. And then I would like paint with shoes, paint with an egg, paint with like a coat hanger.
Look, Alexandra, there's this thing called a paintbrush.
I know. I know. But I wanted something like a bit different. And I always just liked working in like basic mediums, like just black and white.
Yeah.
So that's how I got into like just experimenting with art again. I think like just a bit like childlike. And then after that, my boyfriend at the time, he's like, do you want to move up north? Like, because he got a placement for his job up there, so in Port Hedland. And then I was like, oh, yeah, what am I doing? I can do what I'm doing, like painting.
Yeah.
Like from anywhere. So I'm like, okay, I'll come with you. Obviously, I wasn't going to leave him. So then I told my parents and they were like so against it. They're like, what are you going to do up there? And I'm like, oh, don't worry, I'll find a job. I'll find a job at Subway, work part-time, and then I'll continue like painting. And then I'll come back next year for the...
And like, did you say Subway? What is it?
Yeah, like Subway. Because there was only like one Kmart there, one Coles. It's a very small town. It's just for mining.
Whereabouts is it? Is in...
It's near Karratha.
Oh, okay, yeah. So like...
I think an hour away from Karratha. It's Port Hedland.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just a town for mining, really. And it's so hot. Anyways, I ended up moving up there with him. And then I remember I got there and I'm like, oh, there's nothing here. But I was like, okay, I have to make some money, apply for some jobs. And then there was like a tattoo shop. And I showed, there was only like one man and his fiance at the time who worked there. So the man would do the tattoos and then his fiance would manage the studio. And then I just walked in and then I showed them. I was like, oh, I'm looking for a job. Do you do like apprenticeships? And actually like in uni, I used to do like hand poke tattoos.
Yeah.
just for like pocket money. So I had like a bit of an interest in tattooing. So I was like, oh, I really hope I get this apprenticeship because I don't want to work at Subway. And then they were like, sure, start on Monday. So then
cool.
obviously it wasn't paid for, I think a couple months it wasn't paid. So from like Monday to Friday, I would just, as an apprentice, I would just like sit next to him. And he was like this huge Aussie bloke. And I like know nothing about, like, we were just so like opposite people. But like, it was really good like learning from him. And in the end, because it was just me and him in the studio, I got to like fast track my apprenticeship. And within like 3 months, I was like on the machine doing tattoos. So I would do like a lot of butterflies, a lot of dog paws, a lot of names, like all the small stuff that he didn't want to do.
Yeah.
And then after work, I would like draw or paint in the shed that we had. And we stayed in this like really small, so it was a house, but it was split into 4 units.
Yeah.
So we were like one of the 4 units. So it was like super small and cramped. And then there was a shed for storage out the back. So I would just like use that shed at nighttime only because it would be too hot to continue like painting with my random objects.
Yeah. So what kind of random objects did you find? Any random ones up there? Like
like a lot of like wild flowers and sticks. Like, because I wanted to just explore like the nature up there. Yeah. So then I would just continue posting it onto my social media. So at the time I had like 3,000 followers on my Instagram.
When was this?
2018.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. My timeline's a bit off, but I think it was around 2018. And I think TikTok was still like quite new.
I think it just sort of
it was
started around then, I guess.
Yeah, starting out. And I remember going back to the design conference, a lot of them like they're like, oh, my works went viral on the like explore page on Instagram, and then that's how like it kind of kicked off. And I remember at the time I'm like, oh, the algorithm on Instagram is so shitty.
Yeah.
Like, what am I gonna do? So there's nothing to do in Port Hedland. Like, so I had a lot of time to just think and go on YouTube, watch Netflix. So I would search like, what's the next best thing to Instagram, like to grow my audience.
You literally searched that?
Yeah, just because I wanted to like see like what other apps were out there. And I always thought that like I loved what I'm doing, but I just want everyone to see it. So I remember I went on there was like this dating app actually, and I would live stream me like painting.
Oh yeah, cool.
But I got some creeps on there, so I was like, maybe that's not a good option. Anyways.
I mean, whatever brings in like the views.
I know. So then I searched, what's the next best thing to Instagram, and then I watched like a lot of Gary V, and at the time, like Gary V's always onto it. So at the time, he's like, if you're not on TikTok, you got to get on TikTok, get posting. But at the time, it was mostly dancing, and it was all dancing. And I really think like I was one of the first, like that artists.
Wow, yeah.
So like the same videos that I would post on my Instagram, and at the time I would upload like my own music to it. Like I used TikTok, and I would just use their sound and upload it. And then
wow, you were actually on it really early.
Yeah.
Like perfectly.
Yeah. So I think that's how like it really like built the momentum of like people seeing my work. And then my storytelling is really bad, but
no, it's good. I'm enjoying it.
There was a unit that I studied in architecture that's about mapping, like making topographic maps about like the land that we were researching at the time. And I was obsessed with that unit. That was the one unit that I kind of just like was so obsessed that I neglected the rest of the things that I was meant to do. So you just had to make maps, and I would use this stippling technique and do dots to like make the maps. And I would use like a black ink pen and tracing paper. And then so I just brought those materials with me too, to like up north. And then one night, I was like, oh, okay, like I'm going to do a portrait, but I'm going to try use that technique. But instead of doing the dot, I'm going to write a word. And because also like my train of thought like is quite repetitive. So then I would write, like, I remember I did a portrait and it would just be like strong. And I think it was meant to like encourage me at the time too.
It's like words of affirmation.
Yeah, kind of like words of affirmation. Sounds a bit cheesy. But yeah, so then I started doing the like little ones. And then because I was doing like referencing a lot of like pop culture icons, which came through TikTok, because TikTok's all about the trends. I was like, okay, what sound, like what songs like popping, and then I would like start drawing. So then I did one of Kanye West, who's very controversial.
Yeah. At the moment.
But you know what? I really like love Kanye West. So he's done like a lot of creative things.
He's definitely a great artist.
Yeah, he is. And it went absolutely viral. I don't know how many like views it has now. Like I think like 20 over mil or something. Wow. And then that's when like the followers came to my Instagram too. And then people just kept like DMing me for like portraits, like all sorts. And they're like, oh, can you draw my brother? Can you draw? And I'm like, oh,
my cat.
Yeah, everything. But then like throughout those requests, there would be like the serious ones that I'm like, yes, okay.
And when was that, when you really took off on the platform?
Maybe like the end of 2018, 2019. So like a year maybe of posting. And then I told my boss that, and I knew he knew that I would leave. I was crying that day because I get so nervous and I'm like, I don't want to let you down, blah, blah, blah. And then, I was like, I'm getting too much work and I really just want to concentrate on my art. Because like if you want to do tattooing, you have to do it full time. Well, that's what he thought. So then I stopped tattooing and then I focused on my art full time. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were just adjusting the camera. Yeah. Like something like there's a theory that in Perth, the reason why there's so many talented artists, I think per number of people, there's like definitely a good number of like very talented artists, is because in a way, well, this is what my friend Atlee said on one of the previous podcasts, is there's like nothing else to do. In a way, like there's that thing like, oh, Perth is boring or whatever. So like, I guess as creatives, we always have that kind of thing to do, that platform to do creatively, to work on. And that kind of relates to what you were saying about when you went to Port Hedland. I guess there was like nothing else to do, but you had, your painting and
I had
creative
like
stuff to do.
The tools that I kind of brought along with me to fill in the boredom. Yeah. That turned into creativity and creating something. Yeah. Yeah, in Port Hedland, there's really nothing to do. Like, it's too hot to be spending like a lot of time outside the house. Yeah, so it was like really good, but it did take a toll on my mental health. So I did move back to Perth.
I mean, yeah, the plus side is you got to focus on your creativity, but
Yep.
it was also like maybe you didn't have many friends
Yeah.
there. But also something that I've been sort of preaching on this podcast, because of a lot of creatives from Perth, they're like, they feel they need to move overseas or move to Melbourne to really connect with brands and that sort of thing. I've been saying you can use the power of social media to do that. Like in the past, I think that was definitely something that you needed to do as an artist. And I think it is still good to connect with like real people over there. Of course, travel is amazing for like inspiration as well. But in today's age, you can use social media like TikTok to, get your work out there.
Yeah.
If you just focus on kind of marketing yourself as an artist, it's a great way to, connect with people and find new brands to work with or people to, customers for your work.
Yeah, it's so powerful, social media. And I think the only reason to move overseas and not stay in Perth would be like just a change of environment, Like I recently came back from New York, and just the energy in New York is so different, and everyone's like hustling, everyone's like wanting to create. But in Perth, we're a bit more like laid back, which is fine.
Sure.
But I think like if you want to, get inspiration, move somewhere else, or if you're like stuck or something, change it up.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think there's that creative energy in New York compared to Perth, where you feel that?
I think there's just like more cultures. There's more cultures and more people. So there's, I think there's more expression. And even like the way people dress, and there's less red tape. In Perth, there's so much red tape. Even if you were
What do you mean
to
by red tape?
like rules, like even if you were to like graffiti.
You mean socially or also?
Yeah, like if you were to like graffiti on a wall or something, you can get like fined. Like you have to really pick certain walls. But in New York, it's just like things are happening everywhere. There's just like not enough rules.
There's definitely that sort of vibe here where like if you were to just graffiti a wall, like everybody would see you, everybody knows. Like if you're different, people like notice you, and you can like easily get for good or bad, get called out or whatever. And I think in places where there is like a lot of graffiti, it's kind of a sign that there's almost more creative expression as well. It's interesting.
That's just how I felt. Like even in Perth, like the way we dress, like we're a bit more. There are people that really can express themselves, but like even in New York, it's like so many more people. But I guess that's just like there's more people there in such a tight space.
For sure. There's like people moving and things happening. Everyone's
there's
close proximity to each other compared to here, where it's like 20, 30-minute drive to get to see your friend.
But Perth is really good because there's also like not as much competition, I guess, so you can stand out.
That's what I think as well. So it's a double-edged sword where you get noticed. Like if you're different, you get noticed. So, but that can be for good or bad. In a way, like so it's kind of bad because I think as a creative, we're kind of quite different to everybody else. Maybe we don't fit in. Maybe we're kind of alternative type of people. So maybe you'll get noticed. Maybe you're the type of person in primary school you'll get like seen as different, and that can be a negative thing socially for you. But then when you grow up, and you're different, but you have some sort of skill or ability behind you, and you can relate it to your business and maybe making money or your personal brand, because you're different, people notice you and you can like turn it into a good thing.
Yep.
So it's kind of what you do with that.
Yep.
Whereas in New York, it's definitely more competitive. There's a lot of
so much more competitors. So I think like, you can just stay in Perth and then just travel. But I think there's more money for art in the States or even.
So what were you in the States for?
So I'm planning to move there just for like 3 months, to continue working on a collection that I'm working on, and then do a showcase at the end of that. So
you went there before?
So I went there before just because it was either going to be in LA or New York, and initially it was going to be like this huge immersive exhibition that I wanted to have.
Mm-hmm.
But after, I was like, I have to visit to see if it's going to work, like if it's practical. And then after like visiting LA, I was like, oh wow, LA's so cliquey. Like it's so hard to even like get your foot in the door as someone like, and I'm like quite emerging as an artist. So it's hard. I felt like it's harder to like be seen, or even if I were to have the exhibition, it's harder to like get people to come. Whereas New York, there's so many little pop-up things happening all the time, and people are keen to like
collaborate
and like bounce around. So I felt like even in New York, I was like waking up early and just like walking and taking photos, and you just feel the energy. So I felt like, oh, it's good to experience that. And if I can finish the collection that I'm working on there and then do a showcase of it, that'll be great. That would be fun. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you think you would live in New York?
I don't think I can live there. It's super expensive. And I'm such a family person too. So I like being close to family. But who knows?
Yeah.
If something pops up that is good enough to keep me there. But
so you think like creative wise, it's a good place to like go there, maybe make connections, have like an experience, and obviously, you know, who knows who could see your work in New York.
Yeah.
You had like was it an independent pop up that you wanted to do?
Yeah. So
just out of your own.
I'm planning on leasing out a studio in like Brooklyn, which is where like most of the warehouses and artists are, and then just like experiencing New York, going out, making connections, inviting people over to the studio.
Yeah.
Just really like being there. And who knows, you can, I think it's like all about networking too. And then after that period of time, I'll see what happens. But yeah.
For sure. And you've worked with some pretty big brands, which is quite incredible, especially as a Perth artist. We got Foot Locker, ESPN, Golden State Warriors, Puma, Manchester City. So these are like, you know, international brands and organizations. How did you do that as a artist from little old Perth?
I know. Well, it's the power of social media, I guess. And that's basically how like everyone from around the world, they can see you and they can find your work. So that's how they found me. And I think through like connecting with, let's say, I did some drawings for Bleacher Report, and then they are friends internally. They're friends with the people at ESPN. So they would just like catch up for drinks and then talk about my work and then make that connection there. And then they'll be like, oh, if you're doing this campaign, like maybe you can use this artist. And then they'll just like reach out to me and be like, oh, my friend was telling me about your work. And then like even if I do like a private commission for like, let's say a football player, and then they would show people. So it's kind of just like organically,
it's
like that. Yeah.
Almost like a snowball effect of connections
Yep.
in a way. But what really started it was,
Just
would you
putting.
say TikTok? Like,
I would say both TikTok. Just having a presence online
that gets
gets sick.
eyeballs,
Yeah.
like views.
You just need to like, I think if there's like any advice for like artists, you just need to like keep putting work out there. You don't know who's gonna see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't know like what work you'll get. Yeah.
Exactly. And would you say, like, how do they normally reach out to you?
So through DMs.
Just DM?
Yep. And then usually I ask them or email.
Mm-hmm.
But a bit of both. Like usually for all requests on my DMs, I ask them to email me, and then if they don't email me, I'm like, okay, they're not taking me seriously.
Yeah.
But if they get through the emails, then I'm like, okay, let's see.
Cool. I want to talk sort of specifically about a few of the collaborations. Can you talk us through the Foot Locker collaboration?
Yep. So the Foot Locker collaboration, which is actually like one of my favorite collaborations I've done. I made a video for them for International Women's Day, and for the longest time I've been using like other people's sounds and just other people's music
on TikTok.
And I was like talking to Foot Locker, and I'm like, oh, would it be okay if I make my own like bespoke sound? Like, because that's what I've always wanted. I wanted to just like create something that's original. And they're like, oh, okay, like test it out. We'll also have another like hip hop sound on the side. So my boyfriend, who's a music producer, he helped me out with making the sound. And then I asked Foot Locker if they could get voice recordings from females in, like, I think it was the Melbourne store, of like why they're like proud to be working at Foot Locker as a striper. And then he overlapped that voiceover into the sound, and then I drew like the Foot Locker logo as a female, and then I wrote like some of the like quotes that the women from the store said. And then I worked with a really amazing photographer and my friend Peter Hayes, who's a fashion photographer, and we just filmed a video for that. And so yeah, I'm very proud of that one.
Wow, I love how that all kind of came together, like the whole concept. That's such an amazing concept, and then just like each element of creativity kind of ties into each other to create like this piece of video content, but it's also your artwork as well. That's super cool.
Yeah, that one was a fun one.
And then the Puma and Manchester City. I mean, that's huge. Like Man City is like a massive football club.
Yeah. Well, I'm not
internationally known.
Yeah.
And Puma's like a internationally known, like, humongous brand.
Yeah.
And
that one was more straightforward. I didn't have much like creative pull on that one. So they just gave me a reference, and they're like, use these words, draw this image, and then that was it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so you didn't have much creative control with that?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Yeah, but that one was also fun. I was very thankful for that project.
So what did you draw for that one?
It was a soccer player. I should know, but I don't follow the soccer, you know, so yeah.
Okay. And any other favorite kind of international clubs?
I did a piece for the WNBA, and it was, they wanted something in color, and before that I only worked in like my black ink pen on white paper, so that one really pushed me. And the thing about why I love collaboration is because it really like forces you to get out of your comfort zone and you always like end up creating something. It forces you to create something different, I guess. And yeah, so I really like that one. I worked digitally with that piece, and I drew the female basketball players that they wanted me to draw. Like I made a collage of the basketball players, and then I did it in neon with like the different names, and then I like spray painted it all. So that one was like very different, but it like produced a whole new kind of way for me to create art in the same style.
For sure. Yeah. I love that how you said collaboration forces you to create your art in new ways, because it's just important for us as artists to understand and interpret different perspectives. And I think that's why travel and like meeting people ties into creativity, because you're absorbing like different perspectives and then thinking of new ways of doing things.
Yep.
And was that the first time you created something like digitally in your style?
I was kind of just like starting to test out my drawings digitally. But yeah, that was one of the first. Yeah. And it was really good because like all these projects that I get commissioned to do, there's like a timeline. There's like that you have to get it done by. So it really does like force you to, whereas when you don't have that deadline, you can like just like idle around and be like, okay, I have this idea, I might. But I feel like for me especially, I need to be like pushed really and in that fire zone to create like something different and step out of my comfort zone. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the same with me, especially for personal projects. I'm just like, just taking my time with it and like feeling like, oh, it'll be done when it's done. But sometimes it is good to like have that when somebody else gives you that deadline, you can really like push yourself to finish it.
And I've done drawings that like I don't like in the end, but then there's still that deadline, so you still have to just keep putting work out there, I guess. Yeah.
So with your pen on paper portraits, how long does it take you usually to complete a full portrait that's created with the writing?
Yeah. So I work in various sizes at the moment. Like I've been very into working on, so for the collection that I'm working on, the pieces of artwork are like 1.4 meters by 2 meters high. So that one usually takes me like a month to create, or a month and a half. It really depends. Like if I have other projects in between that I'm trying to finish too. And then let's say like an A1 piece might take me a couple weeks or 3 weeks.
Okay. And because I saw you had some sort of collaboration with Apple. Can you tell us about that?
So I think through social media, Apple. Okay, so I'm a huge fan of Apple. And when I started experimenting with the digital pieces, I would be like, oh, I wonder if like Apple will see my work and we can work together. So I would post my process videos with like the iPad that I had, and hashtag Apple or hashtag Apple or made with Apple or something like that. And then I think they found me through there because I was using their products. And then we have a relationship now. So yeah, they sent me out the new iPad and it's amazing. Like I love, that's all I use, like Procreate to create.
I've played around on the newer iPads with the pen.
Yeah,
I was like,
it like hovers. There's like a hover feature and everything. But there's just so much like little things that I'm still like trying to navigate around the iPad. But yeah.
Do you see yourself moving to a more digital platform?
I think with like how the world is evolving, I think I am trying to like learn the skills to like navigate the digital virtual world. But I think I'll still like keep doing the physical handmade drawings too and not cut that out. But
Yep.
yeah,
To sort
just
of have,
seeing like where the demand is, I guess,
Yep.
as we progress.
so you
To
you haven't really made a decision, but you just kind of like go with the flow and do both, and one
yeah,
might catch on, or one you might continue to do what you
yeah. Because I think that's like art, like it ebbs and flows. Like there's trends that come and go. But I think it is like important to start like learning how to like produce art in the digital for the digital world because that's where our future is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think a lot of artists, and one of the reasons, well, what I sort of say on this podcast is because some artists, at least before the sort of digital age, they kind of look down a bit upon like creating art in the digital with digital methods, or even like using digital media to like even promote your work or whatever.
Yeah, it wasn't popular at all. Yeah. Until until the pandemic.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. Don't you think?
I think
Like digital, it was mostly.
I think there were, yeah, now that you mention it, there was a shift with just how society relates to digital content with TikTok. I think, honestly, it's that application that changed the game. Like, even as someone who also created YouTube videos, because there's a stigma around being a YouTuber, like a YouTube creator as well. But then when TikTok came out, at least after a year, people were making, like, the everyday person was creating a vlog, which was like used to be seen as the dorkiest thing, like, to make a vlog on YouTube.
Now everyone has like day in my life vlogs.
Exactly.
Yep.
So there was definitely a shift in 2018 because of that app, and I think it's really positive. But I think maybe some artists struggle to. Maybe they're like sort of stuck in the old ways of doing things, which is like, just you don't really like. They think of themselves as more of like an organic, holistic artist that doesn't do anything digitally. They're just.
But I think like you can do both because you can collaborate and work with someone that can do animations, digital art, and you can just like scan your painting and then manipulate that to be something digital.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think that's 100% right, and I think that stigma has has pretty much dissolved. Now.
Because I think it's cool now, like digital art.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and then like I went to a like Web3 conference in Sydney a couple weeks back, and it blew my mind, like how they were saying how everything's we're just going to like be in worlds online, and like even like fashion, how they're trying to move towards that whole like virtual world. So and that also like helps like the environment and like not producing as much.
Yeah.
Like especially for like the samples and whatnot. So
yeah,
crazy.
Web3 would just be another whole shift in how artists create. We haven't completely adopted Web3. We're just dabbling in it. Mark Zuckerberg's holding on to his metaverse. But that is where we're going. And I think even, cryptocurrency was sort of the introduction to that. Then NFTs. I'm not sure if you've dabbled in NFTs.
At the start of it, I did, and I sold 3 NFTs. And then there was that whole influx of like non-artists just like wanting to like, you know, just make
profit.
a quick buck. Yeah. So then after that, I was like, how can I compete with that? And now there's like AI and everything. Everything's just so fast. And I don't think it was about the art for a while after that.
Yeah, with each shift, it's kind of like, as artists, we have to reevaluate like what art means, what art means for us. And yeah, for sure, you had NFTs. They were, you know, popularized about maybe a year or so ago. Like that's when they kind of came into the mainstream. And yeah, when it first came out, it was like, wow, amazing. Artists can finally, you know, they can live off their craft. They can make money off their craft. And it was, and then came in these apes, these like bored ape apes. Things. And they're just like, you know, these tech guys or coders or money hungry crypto bros would just like create a way to just code and like make like a million bored apes, and just then the incentive was just for profit.
Yeah, because like why would someone like buy yours if the like bored ape is in demand?
Here's the thing,
that hype. Yeah. Short
term, those bored apes will be successful. People will be wearing on chains, but long term, if it's always going to tie back to the artist. Like, what does that bored ape actually mean? At the end of the day, it's just, I mean, sure, like an artist made it, but to be honest, I haven't looked into who actually made this bored ape, so I don't actually know. But if it's an artist that created it, you know, based on like their identity and like put a lot of passion and work, and that art relates to that artist and their history, it's going to be like valuable long term. It's going to be like a long term investment.
Like someone like Beeple, you know, Beeple?
Yeah.
Like
I love Beeple stuff.
Yeah, he's incredible. So
he's an example of an NFT artist that he's like an actual artist.
Yeah. He's an actual artist.
Yeah.
Not like, I don't know, maybe the bored ape guys are actual artists.
Could be. I'll probably have to look into that. But there are a lot of
just like generated
people, and there's a culture behind just profiting off little crappy cartoons.
Yeah.
And just trading them like just crypto. So it's just turning into like just money, which it's not the same as art. Yeah, it doesn't have meaning behind it. And also I'm just tying back to creating things digitally. Do you think you would, because I think with the digital ones, you wouldn't repeat the writing over and over, or do you, you can like, you know, because with digital stuff, you can just copy and paste it basically.
You can do that, but then I guess then everything will be the same. Like if I have been like just doing the same thing, but on digitally.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you want the even minute differences in the writing structure, and it adds to the. Okay.
Yeah. I'm quite basic, so that's what I've been doing. But maybe I can try that. But I think it just like will look completely different. But maybe for the better. I don't know. I haven't experimented with that yet.
It's interesting, hey, like if you were to create your art at scale, does it lose authenticity? Like, you know what I mean? Like if you were to figure out a way digitally to just, you know, create your art. I mean, they take sometimes a month to do, but digitally you could find methods that you could pump it out maybe like, you know, very quickly. Do you think that would take away from the authenticity of your art?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Because, like, obviously there's people that do, like, large paintings that are quite simple too, and then they have, like, the digital ones.
Yeah.
And then it's still their art. I think it just is about the artist and who made it. That's the value.
Yeah.
The value is in the artist making the work right?
Yeah, I
You pay,
agree
yeah.
with that. If that decision was made, from like just like a grounded decision of like this is like it's a decision made without any like sort of monetary incentive or sort of it was kind of a decision about like this is the time we're living in, and like it doesn't change your creative the kind of meaning behind the work, if you know what I mean, because obviously some artists can make work in 2 seconds, some artists take and
it doesn't matter like how long it takes, right?
Like as a photographer, I mean, I create like with a click.
And there's like, but
But it
it's
doesn't.
all about the
Yeah.
skill and
The history behind it.
the history, the story, the history, and like it's like those really good like artists, like it's hard to match like what they can do, and if they started that style first, blah blah blah.
It's actually a really good analogy, the photography thing, because as a photographer, I just click that photo, but in order to make that photo, like it was years and years of learning how to use a camera, like experiencing my life, traveling, finding a perspective, finding my identity in order to make that click. So it's exact same with other art.
Yeah, because it's just like someone, exactly what you said.
Yeah. What's kind of on the horizon for you as an artist? Like, where do you see yourself going and doing? Like, what do you want to accomplish?
So, the short term. So ever since I started drawing, I've never like had an exhibition of my work. So everyone's mostly experienced my work on their phone, or I think on their phone. So that's why I decided I need to like do this showcase. I might have like a soft showcase in Perth before I go to the States. And I really wanted it in the States just because most of my collectors are in the States. So that's short term. And then obviously I want to keep learning how to like digitally produce my artworks and make like things that people can use. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
have you found like local Perth galleries like contacted you or things like that? Have you found the response of collaborations or potential collaborations here compared to other places like the US?
I think because of the subjects that I draw, so most of them are like from the US. Like that's why I get a lot of work from the US. And I think the art world in Perth is quite old. They're much older, so they don't really understand my work.
I sort of have a problem with that. Like, I feel like the art galleries here, like especially the bigger art galleries, like Art Gallery WA, for example, like should be contacting artists like yourself and like collaborating, because you're here, you're a successful artist, you have a big audience that's like knows who you are and your work, and I'm sure you also have quite a good local audience as well. There seems to be some sort of disconnect. I think maybe they haven't caught up with the times. They're in maybe some older way of thinking about things and artists. But it's kind of, I think it's unfortunate that they aren't making more, collaborations with artists that, are successful on social media as well. And talented,
That's true, because I think they also look at your like background if you like graduated with like fine art degree and like what other things you've been in like other shows, and like the art gallery of Western Australia, I think they get like a lot of like international artists too, like to showcase work. So it's a bit harder for me to showcase here. I think I can do it on my own and stuff. But
That's what it always ends up
yeah.
being, because
And then
in Perth, like, yeah, we have these galleries, but they're not like reaching out to, you know, local artists. There was a collaboration
with the
one recently at the Agua.
the graffiti artist.
Is he from
I think he
Perth?
was from Perth.
Okay. So
yeah, that was
that's really cool. Yeah.
Maybe they're slowly dipping their toes in.
There was another one with like a sculptor. He makes like colourful, cute sort of like sculptures. I need to find him on Instagram. But yeah, it looks like maybe they're starting.
Yeah, maybe they're starting to do it, because now they've got like the rooftop up there. Maybe there's like a more like younger people in Agua.
Yeah. Trying to find his Tim Meekins, yeah.
Oh yes. Yeah.
So I like his stuff.
Cool.
Like his work's really fun. And I think he had like a collaboration at Agua as well, and he has some t-shirts. So I bought one of the t-shirts.
Yeah, I like his stuff. He was like a graphic designer, right? Before delving into like more art, sculptures. Yeah. Maybe in the future.
Because I just think also there's, I would like to see art galleries, you know, be open for maybe the more general public or younger audience to kind of come in there and interact with the art. Because like I do see like there are some works that kind of need to be, you know, respected or displayed in a certain way. But I think the Perth art community, or at least maybe some of the larger galleries, failed to connect with like a younger audience, because there are a lot of like young artists that I think it would be important for them to like go to these events, meet people, and maybe the work that they show isn't doesn't really entice them to go there. But I think maybe someone like yourself, because you are on these platforms that younger artists are on as well, I think they'd be like really interested to go see your stuff as well.
Yeah, but even like when I went to New York, and galleries in general are like really hard to get into as a young emerging artist. I think you just need to like kind of work your way and get older through experience to get into the doors.
It does seem like an older artist,
because they are like older people own the galleries.
Yeah. And
it's all about who you know.
That's their friends and all of that. Do you think there's a link between age and like how important your work is? Because I guess with age comes life experience. Does that mean your art's necessarily going to be better?
That's a good question. I don't know. I've never thought about that, but I think so. I think with experience, just like building the story and like the different projects you work on, instead, like would you invest in someone who's just made like one drawing compared to someone that's made like 100?
Yeah, interesting topic. I think, with as you age, you get more life experience and you kind of like develop those ideas, but also, you know,
and you show how committed you are, maybe.
Yeah.
Like to your practice, which is like respectful.
But I don't think age should determine how important or potent your work is. I mean, you have I'm trying to think of the photographer now. I need to search it.
Is he young?
He takes photos of the houses. Ian
Strange.
Yeah. So like Ian Strange is quite a young artist, but he's also, you know,
Is he? I actually talked to him the other, maybe 4 weeks ago now, because I'm like, what should I do? Like, I want to showcase my work. And he was telling me how he started out. And at the time, he just like, he was 25. He just flew to New York and started doing like street art, I think. And he got a studio and started inviting people to see his work. And that's how I got like inspired to do the same thing, like get a studio and invite people in. I think he's 30 something now. Is that still young?
Yeah, I think that's still young as an artist. And I think as an artist that, you know, his work's been shown in like a lot of galleries.
Yeah, but it's because he went away and then came back.
Ah, okay. I think this is a Perth thing as well. It's like, if you're in Perth, you can have the same talent.
Yeah,
but if you fly over to New York and you have a little exhibition in New York and you just say, yes, I exhibited in New York, or you go to Paris and you just even like a little thing, then Perth people are like, oh, now you're validated because you've gone to New York, you've gone to Paris and exhibited your work.
Yeah. It's all perception. It's all like man-made anyways, our whole world, so.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing. So maybe that like.
Yeah. I was talking to him because I was like, oh, like, what do you think about the Australian art scene? And he was like, oh, the US just has more money in arts and more people, right? So you can do more.
That's an interesting thing, like how Australians view artists, and if you've been overseas, you're kind of more validated. And it's the same with hip hop as well. For example, like the Kid Leroy. I was talking this with DJ Waves, who's like a DJ here, and he's highly knowledgeable in like hip hop culture and stuff. And we were talking about how the Kid Leroy was here and making music, like, but he had to go to the US to be validated by listeners here. And I think that's any hip hop artist here. You're like, oh yeah, you just make music. We can't just accept that they're good. We need the US's opinion on artists here to know that we're good. Okay, then they think it's good. Okay, then it's good.
Yeah, that's
stupid.
True. It's so stupid. Yeah.
Even you can relate
that happens to acting too, right?
Yeah.
Everything.
It's like
in that creative world.
We can't just identify within ourselves that this is an amazing artist. Let's kind of get behind them and push them. And it's also the same with fashion, because I make little TikToks sometimes on the digital creators page of like, what people are wearing in Perth today, and sometimes people have really cool like outfits, but the comments are just like so mean.
Like where the people from that are commenting the hate comments?
They're from Perth.
Yeah,
Perth.
See, like you can't express yourself like that in Perth because I think there's less creative people in Perth. So compared to, and I think as a creative, you just see things differently. Your mind is more like open to things. So if the people who are commenting are probably not open to seeing things in a different way.
Here's the thing. If I record a person in Perth with a cool outfit and they have a different accent, like an American accent, and it doesn't matter they're from Perth, they just have a different accent, they'll be more accepting. They're like, oh, cool. Yeah, cool outfit, like an American accent. Cool. We support that. But then if it's an Australian with an Australian accent,
it's like they're trying. I don't know.
So stupid.
Yeah.
Even with
Is it part of like the Australian culture? Like just to like poke at?
It is the fact that, we're looking outside of Australia for acceptance in what we do. Maybe we haven't built a strong identity here as Australians. I think I'm trying to kind of showcase that through this platform as well. Like, I think our identity should, we should have our own identity as Australians. Like, I think we're a multicultural society, and we need to like embrace that, use that as our creative fuel, and as and to base our identities in. But not everyone has their own belief in what it means to be Australian.
Yeah, and that's like goes back to history, right?
Yeah.
So that's probably where we're at now, like trying to still find our identity.
Yeah, as a collective society.
Yeah.
Do you use because you have a background, your parents are from Singapore?
Yeah, so my parents I was born in Singapore too. And then we moved over here when I was like 4. So I grew up in Perth, and I feel like Perth is my home. Like, I don't have any like friends really in Singapore, but still like a lot of
were you born here?
No, I was born in Singapore. So I grew up here, and I think the next series of artworks that I'm going to do after this collection, which the collection is about icons and how like in our society today we're so influenced by idols. So, and I got this tattoo in my arm inspired by that. But the next collection I'm doing is going to be exploring my culture, and I'm going to try learn like Chinese, just because I moved here when I was so young that I've just like not really gave it an effort to connect and learn more about my Asian culture. And you really have to like be patient and be committed to learning about it. And I really haven't yet.
You haven't kind of like delved into your cultural history?
Not really. Not in depth. Yeah.
I think it's... Well, I was going to say, from even as a creator myself, my influences have been just looking at my style of photography at the moment. Actually influenced by sort of films like Wong Kar-wai films, like Fallen Angels, for example, to the aesthetic. I guess in my work, I'm trying to capture also multiculturalism here, but it's also, my influence is probably from, because I have traveled in, East Asia and that sort of thing. That might be why I have that influence. I love like old Wong Kar-wai films and just the cinematic quality to them. So I was trying to use that for my inspiration.
Oh, cool.
But for yourself, you've kind of been inspired by pop culture icons in the US.
Yeah. And I think it comes from just being a creative, and I'm inspired by like different creatives. Yeah. I'm like, wow, they're creating something amazing. Like, I'm like, that's so cool. Okay. That's why I decided to draw the people I've drawn so far. But even like talking to like different, like my friends, if they don't believe in like, let's say God, or they're not religious, I'm always like, oh, who inspires you? They're either like, oh, the world, or they're like Kendrick Lamar, or like, like an icon, which I find interesting. And then I'm like, oh yeah, that's why he dresses like this. That's why they sing or rap like this, Yeah.
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 And I think kind of tying it back to Australians, like looking outside of Australia for validation. It's interesting that like I use inspiration outside of Australia. You use inspiration outside of Australia.
Yeah.
I think maybe because we still haven't collectively identified identities out of Australia. However, now we've actually have a lot of similarities in terms of like just listening to your whole story. Like I was pretty much similar in terms of my journey as a creative, and now even you're going to be delving more into your culture, finding your own personal style, kind of as it relates to you here now, compared to your work doing portraits of pop culture icons. It's kind of the same for me. Whereas I was with my style, my photography style that's out now, it's very much inspired by the Chinese film director Wong Kar-wai, his films, sort of Eastern influence. I'm sure there's other influences there, but now I'm kind of I'm going to be releasing a book for that series, but now I'm moving on to more documentary style photography, which relates to who I am and what I'm interested in here and now, which is documenting creativity that's around me, like documentary style work. So it's more, it's less kind of influenced by other countries, I guess, or other outside influences, and it's more like myself and who I am, and that's sort of what you're doing.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing.
So that might be also where other Australians, or why other Australians or people from Perth locally find it hard to support or encourage artists that without that influence as well.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, that might be where it's coming from.
Yeah, but like I've gotten people from Australia and they always ask me like, can you draw a kangaroo? Can you draw like a wildflower? And I'm like, not yet. But that's all they want in Australia.
Yeah.
Or like a landscape of Rottnest or something like that, which is fair enough.
How do you manage, clients who want, how do you manage paid work as compared to your own personal work?
So, yeah,
in terms of what you want to do.
Well, I usually talk with them and tell them like listen to their and they usually give me a lot of creative input. I haven't done too many commission works for people in Australia, but
do you have a lot of Australians that asking you for commissions?
Like smaller commissions, which I've been very lucky for the last 2 years. I've gotten quite big commissions that's taken up my whole year's worth. So maybe next year.
It's interesting though. I think that's a common thing for a lot of artists as well. Like a majority of your clients are international and not here, and it's almost like it's kind of like when a musician gets quite big, they have to move overseas because that's where the demand is, even though
everything's online.
Yeah, it's online. You just stream and you book tours and travel anyway. Yeah, it's just another reason why artists feel the need to move overseas. And because there is that, and it just feels like there's not enough support or cultivation behind art here in Australia or Perth. I mean, I haven't actually been to Melbourne. Maybe it's different over there, but
I think Melbourne's more expressive because there's more culture, more people there compared to Perth. But I just think there's less people who value art. Yeah. They value other things like nature, because that's what Australia is so known for. Our nature is so beautiful. They rather, this is a good example. They rather get a 4-wheel drive or something than art, which makes sense. Or a boat, go fishing, you know?
Yep.
Like, whereas in the US, it's just like they love all these random, like, pop cultural artifacts. Yeah. So that art comes into that.
Exactly. It's our values.
Yep, our values.
And I've talked about this a few times, but I really went quite deep on the episode with Atlee, who runs Artist Initiative Perth, which is like a collective artist. But we were talking about how a lot of the culture here is kind of driven by our industries, and our main industry is mining.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that mining has, such a big income for WA, a lot of people just rely on that to, you can do like a job in FIFA and you can get well paid. And then we just buy houses and a Land Rover and a jet ski, and we're just like, that's life. Like, what else could you want?
Yeah.
So like, what they're kind of like, why do we need any creativity? Why do we need? They don't see it as
which makes sense.
Yeah, I can see where they're coming from.
Yeah, because it is a pretty good life. Well, FIFO is hard, but it pays well.
But then we have a city where not many international people want to come here because we don't have that creative expression as a collective city like New York or Japan or South Korea, where they have that like a strong cultural identity. So international people don't really want to come here, and young people find it boring to live here.
Yeah, because it's so far away. Even like different events, like creative events, it's so hard to get people to them. Yeah.
So then you kind of have also these young people, because I don't know if it's the same for you, you just struggle to
like
find events and like find people and things to do. So sometimes it's easy for people in like rural towns or even places like Perth to kind of go into more like less sustainable activities for themselves.
Yeah, like I was talking to my boyfriend and we were saying how like people rather go to like Pineapple Club, like those kind of events, just to like listen to these music and get drunk, than go to like an event that's actually has good music.
Yeah.
And appreciate the music. Like they just go out for a different reason, not to appreciate the music and art,
Yeah.
To just have a fun time and get drunk.
Yeah. It's like I guess the easiest way to have fun or whatever is, you just need alcohol or drugs or whatever, and like I know as young people, like even like the funnest thing was kind of like just skateboarding, even for me, just going out with friends. Like that was, you can do that anywhere. You don't need to be, in a huge city to find a skate park or skate. You can just skate on the side of the road or
that's
go with friends. But
is that how you got into photography too?
Yeah, it is actually. Yeah,
skaters. Yeah,
yeah, it's quite common, but without that value system here, I think a lot of young people can get in the wrong path. Even creatives, like they have that credibility, but maybe, I don't know, because there's less things to do. In rural towns, how it's more common, or even countries, lower socioeconomic countries, you can get into drugs easier or crime. There's something about creativity and the way how society can embrace creativity that can have a really positive impact on young people. And I think that's why young people struggle here, because there isn't that embrace of creativity. It's all very like older people, older money, mining. That doesn't relate to creativity.
And that's the problem.
Yeah. Couple more questions here, like artificial intelligence. Okay. What's your opinion on artificial intelligence, and how would you feel if I typed in Alexandria Lee art and it just portrait of, a famous person, it just can come up like that easily?
I think it's cool I really think it's cool because it can help like facilitate your ideas as a creative. Like I've only touched briefly, like looking into it, but I think it's really cool, and it can never, like, you can type that in, but it will never be like exact same as like a physical piece that I'm actually drawing on the piece of paper, you know. So yeah, I just think it's really cool. But I know it like takes the styles of other artists, and some people think that's like stolen art, which some artists don't like.
I've seen that. I
Yeah,
haven't looked into whether that's correct, but
I think it's all very new. So, but what do you think of it?
actually, I wouldn't say that would be stolen art, because it's almost like I get inspiration from other artists. So the AI is getting inspiration from other artists and creating something new. So I think that's okay.
Yeah, I think it just depends on the individual and your thoughts on it.
I think it's the same as, it always ties back to the artist and who they are. Like me, I take a photo, it takes like a hundredth of a second. But I've had that life experience to like, and that direction that I want to go on to create that image. Anyone else can have the same camera in the same spot, but they're going to take something different. You, even for your work, you can take a month to create, you know, a pen and paper portrait, but you can take a few hours to create one digitally. But it's the fact that it comes from you, and AI doesn't have that life experience. I think, as you were saying, it's cool. I think it's a great tool. But it's artificial intelligence. It's not a person. It's not a human.
Yeah, so
Doesn't
it
have a
doesn't
soul. You hear that?
It doesn't have that depth.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's really cool.
Yeah, as a tool, and for inspiration as well. Matsu was saying it's great for inspiration. It's kind of like a Pinterest, like a mood board. You know, we scroll on Instagram, we save little images for inspiration. I think it's a great tool. But I don't think it will replace artists. Yeah.
Or even if you're like struggling to like get your thoughts or like visualize something, you just type stuff in and then it'll really help. So yeah, it's a great tool.
Alexandria, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. That was like a really good conversation, and it was amazing to find out more about you and what you're doing and how you got to be where you are.
Thanks for having me.
No worries. And where can people find you and contact you?
They can find me on my socials, which is Alexandria__Lee, and that's on TikTok and Instagram.
And YouTube?
Yep.
YouTube? Or is that not going anymore?
YouTube too.
YouTube as well?
Briefly. I'm starting to post more shorts.
Oh, cool. Nice. Yeah, I'll leave everything in the description. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I'll catch you again on the next one soon. Peace.